All right, Michael, go ahead. Get us started.
Time travel commencing in T-minus 10 seconds and counting.
It's once again time to go back in time as we head back to the future on the WDW News Today podcast. Let's set our time coordinates for this week's trip through Disney Parks history with Professor Tom Corliss.
I don't mind, but you better promise me I'll be back in time. Gotta get back in time.
It's time to go back.
Where, Tom? Where?
Thank you, Michael. We didn't talk about that. Back to the future. That's right. To better understand where the Disney parks are heading in the future, we need to look back at past attractions, maybe some that lasted 15 months, current favorites, and much, much more. And this month, we're celebrating 20 years of Disney's Animal Kingdom with one of its absolute shortest-lived attraction, and needless to say, one of the shortest-lived attractions in the history of the Disney parks, not only Walt Disney World. Joining me for the segment, Rich Grafton.
Hello.
Allison Shee.
Hello, everyone.
Ashley Jasmer.
Hi.
And Michael Batista.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, he's here. He's doing tech stuff, but he's here regardless. All right, so the Discovery Riverboats, this is one of those rare occasions where we talk about something that doesn't have a 60-year history and doesn't have a lot of story to it. It doesn't have a lot of those things because it was really short-lived and it wasn't really even an attraction. But nonetheless, I think it's an important footnote on the 20-year history of Animal Kingdom. It's one of the more interesting chapters in a park that hasn't had a lot of change for the most part. And so that's why we're doing it. So let's not waste any more time. Let's set those time coordinates. We're going back to the 1990s. This is where I usually say back when Jason had hair, but Jason's not here. We're going to go back to the development of Disney's Wild Animal Kingdom. And the development began with an attraction that would eventually become the Discovery Riverboats. Originally intended to be an exciting boat ride, not what we ended up with, as we'll talk about, but they wanted an exciting boat ride, an attraction where guests would come face to face with a fire-breathing dragon, spot a unicorn, get attacked by the legendary Kraken, and even spot a live dinosaur. Yeah. According to Jim Hill, the attraction's original plot, I think this is correct, not usually with Jim, but this sounds right. Jim says, quote, as your boat floated past the opening of a cave, you would have seen a duplicate of the dragon found in the cavern under the castle in Paris. They have like a walkthrough exhibit with an animatronic dragon. Only Walt Disney World versions would have been a lot more active than France's sleepy monster. The dragon would have craned its neck out of the cave, roared at guests, and then breathed fire their way before once again settling back down to sleep. And at this point, your driver would have started to get nervous. He would explain that he was worried that the dragon's roaring would awaken the Kraken, a mythical Greek sea monster that was known to lurk around this stretch of Discovery River. Mind you, the Kraken from Pirates of the Caribbean was not a thing yet. This was not IP-driven. These were things not connected to movie franchises. They used to do that back in the day. Sure enough, the water around the boat would begin to bubble ominously. Off to one side, a huge arm would suddenly cut through the water, and as the boat would begin rocking back and forth, you'd be certain that you're headed for a watery grave, and just then your captain would pull out some sort of weapon and begin plucking, or not a weapon, he actually take out an instrument and begin plucking an odd tune. And as the boat would stop rocking and the water stopped bubbling, the captain would explain that the music had put the Kraken back to sleep. And once that was safe, you'd see even more just on this one little stretch. You would have seen a unicorn, a beautiful white creature shrouded in a mist as it stands in a picturesque grove of trees, pawing the earth lightly with one hoof and nodding its golden horn our way. And the unicorn is only visible for an instant, but it truly is a beautiful sight. And as your boat pulls up to the dock in Harambe, you and your fellow guests would be buzzing about the wonders that you had saw. And to no surprise, due to budget constraints, none of this happened. The scale of the attraction was greatly reduced. They decided to focus on other areas of the park. And this was one of the last things that was worked on. So a lot of the rest of the park fully developed at this time. They knew what they had in store for Dino Land and Africa and even Asia, which was still a year away. This was one of the things they sort of waited till the end. And because of that, I think a lot of this money ended up going to Camp Mini Mickey, which ended up being a placeholder, or at least was supposed to be a placeholder for Beastly Kingdom, which would have featured the unicorns and mythical creatures of that sort that you had previewed on this boat in a more dramatic fashion. But of course, that got cut. Some of the money out of the Riverboat went over here, went over to Camp Mini Mickey, and that's kind of what happened. And we ended up with a ride that wasn't really a ride. Anybody? Nope. All right.
Well,
Michael, we've got some good concept art. Why don't we show some concept art and things we've got?
Well, while you're showing the map, I think some of the names of things that didn't come to fruition, like Safari Village, Genesis Gardens, and so on, is kind of interesting in the whole history of Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, budget cuts are kind of the moral of the story with the early development.
You can say because money.
Yeah, absolutely, because money. I mean, so it all really starts with Paris. Paris failed, and because of that, they got cold feet with everything in development at that time. And this was one of those things in development at this time was this park. So they cut Beastly Kingdom. They cut Tiger River Rapids in half, eventually became Kali River Rapids. They cut this boat ride down. Even Dino Land lost things. They lost the excavator coaster and other things. And a lot of things were lost. You can see here, like even up here, they're describing a lot of things that did not happen on this ride. There was not... there wasn't Asian deer to see. There wasn't any aqua animal area. There really wasn't any of this stuff to see. None of this really materialized. In the Dragon's Cave, only in the absolute most basic form, and pretty much the same thing for the dinosaur encounter. By the way, Safari Village is the original name of Discovery Island, for those unaware. Discovery Island, of course, was the name of the zoological park that Disney had by Magic Kingdom. And they closed that shortly after the opening of Animal Kingdom. And so they changed the name of Safari Village to something they thought made more sense. I think people got confused because there was Kilimanjaro safaris. So people were asking in Safari Village, where's the safari? Meanwhile, it was in Africa, a different land. So they decided, well, Discovery Island's gone. We should just change the name of this. And fun fact for you, the last version of the Discovery Island sign actually still exists backstage at Rafiki's Planet Watch. They have a little exhibit about Discovery Island as part of their routes, Disney's animal park routes leading to this park.
Was Genesis Gardens an original name for the Oasis?
I think so. Yeah. So you got to remember this plan up here might go back to when the entrance of the park was Noah's Ark. So there were some Bible-y things happening in this park, and eventually they decided not to do that. So Genesis Gardens might tie into that a little bit, but yeah, it was the Oasis by the time the park opened. But there were Noah's Ark stuff carried through for a while, and they've shown that concept art at events and stuff of guests would have walked through the whole of the Ark into the park before they knew. They had the hardest time deciding on a park icon for this park before they landed on the Tree of Life. Michael, could we switch to, we have some of the concept art of the boat or the dragon scenes, or I know we have all kinds of fun stuff to show. Nope, not that yet. There, I mean, you could show the cup. The cup basically has it. Those of you may remember when the park opened, they had a fairly large marketing campaign with McDonald's. McDonald's also sponsored a whole land of the park, Dino Land. The other fun thing about this promotion was the McRib. For those of you unaware, the McRib comes from the Animal Kingdom promotion. That sandwich did not exist before. Just like the Szechuan sauce started with Mulan, that same year, the McRib started with the Animal Kingdom promotion. But as part of that promotion, Discovery Riverboats was all over that, and the Dragon was all over everything. So that tells you how late in the game they changed all these plans. There's a concept art for the boat itself. Yeah, and we'll talk a lot about this Dragon art, which was very, very public. Not a thing they were hiding. We can talk about we'll talk about McDonald's later. We'll get to McDonald's. So yeah, the official description of the ride as it would exist when the park opened, quote unquote, a preview of the fascinating lands of Disney's Animal Kingdom. You'll depart from Safari Village and cruise past the foreboding Dragon Rocks, where fearsome bellows and gusts of real fire emanate from rocky lair. Farther upriver, a steaming geyser erupts right beside your boat, and you'll get a waterside view of Harambe just before you exit at Upcountry Landing near Africa. You may also depart from Upcountry Landing to complete your tour of Discovery River. You'll pass the shores of Asia, an exciting new land opening in early 1999, then sail around giant animal sculptures that rise from the depths to spout water through the air. And be careful when you cruise by Dinoland USA, you may just startle a 35-foot dinosaur feeding in the river.
If this actually opened, it would have been very cool, and it would have been kind of like akin to like the Disneyland Railroad, where you get to have like a preview of the whole park before you like indulge in all the things that it has to offer.
And show scenes.
Yeah.
Unlike, it's more like the Walt Disney World Railroad, which has nothing to look at and is the worst railroad of any Disney park in the world. But we'll talk about that another time. Yeah,
it has bamboo.
Yeah.
What's really sad is the park was not built in a way to be seen from this vantage point.
No.
That was really, I think, the problem. And I hate to be this guy already, but at Tokyo Disney Sea, they have the transit steamer, and the park, every angle of the park. These are developed at the same time. This is we're talking the same 3-year period. So this is actually a really good point to make. From the transit steamer, every view of the park is beautiful. It's well thought out. Like they actually thought, like, oh, we're gonna have these boats passing through. We'll make and that it doesn't have scenes. So just like this, there's not really scenes, but the park itself was built in a way that it's picturesque from every angle on that boat. They didn't think that far through with this boat ride, and because the scenes got cut, they then didn't go back and like try to fix sight lines. The ride just ended up being what it was, with big blank spaces that they didn't finish.
Which is a shame. And I think it's even a little bit more depressing that they left in just enough so that you notice that there's stuff missing. Because at least like the Magic Kingdom Railroad.
The Magic Kingdom Railroad. The Walt Disney World Railroad.
I'm so tired right now. Leave me alone.
But you take the Sky Train to the Magical Kingdom.
I was about to say Disneyland, but thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can still kind of see that just for the functionality as a way of transportation. It's not great, but technically you can just get around the park, and they don't make a big to-do about it. But because there's zero show scenes. And then you have Disneyland, where there are show scenes and interesting things to look at because they wanted that. And here it's this weird hodgepodge where you've got the dragon that doesn't really work and things like that. So it's just enough to make it seem sad.
We didn't really have a dragon. We'll talk about that in a few moments.
Well, but you know what I mean? Like they did just enough to draw your attention that there's stuff missing.
The idea of a dragon.
Yeah.
It's been almost 20 years since I've been on this because, well, it's almost been gone for like 19 at this point. But when I have no memory of anything resembling a show scene at all. I actually have no memory of like the cave that they allegedly pointed at. All I remember is like a skipper with a terrarium that was smaller than one you would get at a carnival if you were buying like hermit crabs, and like him like sort of passing that around the boat. And giving some facts about whatever animal was inside. I remember only one terrarium. I assume they had more than that.
Madagascar hissing cockroach.
Yeah, that was one of the things they brought out.
That I believe. I remember it being something like the lizards you would see running around in the queue areas anyway. It wasn't like a...
Yeah, there was nothing like crazy, yeah. Yeah, I don't think we have a list of the animals, but those all sound right. Yeah, it was basically whatever was available. A lot of the little things that they now show off in the animal encounters at Planet Watch. There was a lot of that kind of stuff. So the bearded dragon, things like that. But let's talk about the attraction that did exist. It opened, of course, with the park on April 22nd, 1998. It did open for the previews of the park, and during the previews, it was a disaster. Cast members recall waiting quite a long time for the boats, and of course, that would only get worse when the park actually opened. Look at that. That's the shirt I wore on Sunday or Saturday, whenever. When was that event? I don't even know. Whatever the anniversary was, Sunday, I wore that shirt. That's the opening day shirt. Which has the riverboat on it. Look at it there. It's underneath the Tree of Life. So it was a fairly big part of the art. I mean, the park didn't have a lot of attractions. If you think Hollywood Studios is bad, man, you should go back to Animal Kingdom on opening day. Michael, we have that map? We got that opening day map? Should show that because that'll give you a good idea of just how little there was to do in this part. Oh, we're jumping ahead.
That's how little there was.
Look out. See, it was even the map was tiny. There we go. So there is the park as it existed on opening day. Dino-Rama is not there, by the way. That's Dinosaur Jubilee. It was a tent of dinosaur artifacts. So if you're looking where Dino-Rama is and it looks like there's Dino-Rama, there's not. And there you have Asia, which would come in 1999. The only part of Asia that was done was Flights of Wonder. Flights of Wonder opened with the park. So the only rides you had were Countdown to Extinction, and you had Kilimanjaro Safaris and Discovery Riverboats and the train. Those were the rides you had on opening day. And then as far as other attractions you had, It's Tough to Be a Bug, Pocahontas and Her Forest Friends, Festival Lion King. This is a 1999 map because Tarzan Rocks is on there, so this is not an opening day. And you had Journey into Jungle Book in there instead of Tarzan Rocks, but that was, you had the Boneyard Conservation Station. Very limited. That's pretty much everything now named that was there at the time. Now we're looking at opening. There we go. We had a snippet of the opening. But see, look at that. It even says opening April. So this is probably the preview map that cast members were given. And you'll even see the Dragon Rock scene is there on the left. So if you look at the left behind the character greeting trails, all those red Mickey hands. Yeah, Michael's circling it. There's the Dragon Rock scene. You can then also see, if you go upriver a little bit, Michael, by the boat, you'll see the geysers. There's a little white bit of rocks right there. Yeah, there you go. There was the geyser scene. And then, of course, all the way out by Asia, there's nothing. But then down by Dinoland, you can actually see the Iguanodon on the map there. So it did exist. It's there. We have video proof and photos for you as well. You're going to see in the segment later on. We'll get there, Michael. You don't have to get there yet. But there's the opening day map. And you can even see Dinosaur Jubilee is that K at the bottom, that tent. And that's what it looked like in real life. It was a tent of dinosaur exhibits. It was pretty terrible. Not that Dino-Rama was a huge improvement, but nonetheless, somewhat of an improvement. So much like the safari vehicles, the Discovery Riverboats came in brand new from the factory, and Imagineer Jack Pletnick was charged with making them look old and well used, so using epoxy mud and even imposter zebra hair. Painters and other Imagineers made the new boats fit into their new home. That being said, the boats were slow to load, the lines were long, and the boats were very loud. They were not the most amazing vessels ever built by the company. During the journey, guests would be shown small animals, tarantulas, scorpions, naked mole rat, things of that sort, and the other ones we mentioned, that had been brought on board, and the captain would walk the aisles and point out other items as well. This was done because there were areas where there were no show scenes. I mean, this is a show scene. This counts as a show scene. So there's geysers on one side and then like a tent on the other in Harambe. So, yeah. You may recognize this now. This isn't a thing you really would have seen after Discovery Riverboats closed for many years. You'll recognize that area now because they built the Harambe Theater out there, and that's one of the walkways to Pandora under that bridge. But for the longest time after Discovery Riverboats closed, you didn't get to see that area. That area was so far off that it was pretty hard to see unless you walked into what was a smoking area by Tusker House down there where the cannon is. It was a smoking section for years. So you had to had to deal with cigarette smoke if you want to see it. There are the boats in storage. Backstage photo. The riverboats themselves had 7 boats.
7?
Yeah, 7. The Manatee Maiden, the Leaping Lizard, which, by the way, is now a drink at Nomad Lounge. The Scarlet Flamingo, the Otter Nonsense, the Hasty Hippo, the Crocodile Bell, and the Darting Dragonfly. And guests could board from 2 docks. The first, of course, located in quote-unquote Safari Village, eventually Discovery Island, and the second in Asia, the Upcountry Landing. And although the boats were primarily designed for transportation, there were a few scenes, as we said before. And so let's talk about this Iguanodon. I don't know if we want to pull up the video. We want to show the pictures, whatever. So in Dino Land, you actually encountered what was supposed to be the Iguanodon that Dr. Seeker had, quote-unquote, rescued and brought back to the present time on Countdown to Extinction. And as the boats passed by the Iguanodon, he would sway his arms in the water as if he was going to splash the boat. The Iguanodon was part of the original plans and was initially intended to be one of the many creatures that guests would see on the attraction. In the end, he became the only creature that guests would see along the attraction. It also tied everything back to Countdown to Extinction, which was kind of a cool thing. Now you're seeing it. There he is. The pictures aren't going to be the greatest quality. You got to remember this existed for a very short period of time before it was removed. But there he is along the banks of the river. With the video, Michael, can we pull that up for everybody?
Yeah, give me a sec.
All right, no problem. I'll keep talking about it. Yeah. So it tied into the attraction. So this opened in April. November of 1998, the Iguanodon was removed. So he didn't even make it a few months. That's why the pictures of him are very rare. The animatronic, though, did have life after that. And after we watch the video, I will talk more about his life later on, because we actually do have a video of that as well.
What is that? He's an iguanodon. Yes, he is. And one of the researchers of Darwin's took a time machine back in time and educated him. He's a vegetarian, unlike your insectivorous lizard dude. Well, besides that one over there, the full dinosaurs are gone. They disappeared during the largest.
There you go. There's basically the only video of that figure that actually exists. Michael, do we have the video of him in Paris after?
Yep, just give me one second.
So the fun thing is, so they removed it. It's not really clear why. I don't know if it had problems or what was going on with it. But the animatronic resurfaced, stripped of its skin and parts, and turned up in all places. The studio tram tour at Walt Disney Studios Park in Paris in 2002 when it opened. So here's a boneyard. There's Dinotopia props. Look it up, kids. See that big skin thing that's coming up? There's Aladar. That's Aladar, that thing that has no skin on it. That's the figure. So for whatever reason, they decided, hey, we don't have enough props from Dinotopia to actually show on this tour. We're going to take the skin off of Aladar and lie to people and say it's a Dinotopia animatronic. That's a real thing there it is. That's a real thing that happened. Only during the lowest point of existence of the Disney parks could such a thing take place, where they decided, hey, let's ship that animatronic across the ocean, strip it of its skin, and lie that it was from a TV series that no one's going to remember by the time this park opens. Yeah. Dinotopia was an ABC miniseries, by the way, made for television. It was a big deal at the moment it debuted, I think, and then not for any amount of time after that. But that's what happened to that guy. And now it's not there anymore. It's no longer standing there to my knowledge. It might be there. I don't know. I'll tell you next month. I have no idea. But I think it has not lived on. So that was that scene. And then the reason most people were riding the Discovery Riverboats was that they had been told that there would be an encounter with a dragon. This is the Dragon Rocks area. Here, Imagineers, of course, initially hoped to have a preview of Beastly Kingdom, which would have been a land when the park opened, but it didn't happen. And of course, as we said before, there would have been a dragon animatronic that popped out and blew fire at you. And thanks to budget cuts, what happened was fire came out of a weird hole next to this really tiny rock. So yeah, it doesn't look like a dragon could live in there because it's like 2 feet tall. And besides that, the fire came out of a hole to the side of the cave. So who knows what they were trying to accomplish here, but this is what people saw. This rock, which you now walk over on the path to Pandora, if you walk between Africa and Pandora, this is now like covered in ivy, but it's still very much there. Yeah, this constituted a show scene, a fire effect out of a rock.
I have no memory of it at all. And I know I've been on it, and I think this is obviously why, because it's completely not memorable. Also, by the time you waited through the 1.5 hour long line, which was all just one of those winding lines directly underneath a covering that I don't think had any breeze whatsoever, and then you sit on a boat for 20 minutes and you get there, I think everyone is like has heat stroke at that point. Maybe they're going to imagine something.
This park's hotter than all the other parks. It's so much warmer.
I know. I always say that, and I know a lot of people say that, but also my memory of this is in July 1998. Animal Kingdom opens, and there's very little to do, and there's very little that's air conditioned.
Yeah. Yeah, very little was indoor. You got to remember, even Festival of the Lion King was not enclosed. Right. It was under a roof. That was it.
It was basically, it's tough to be a bug and Countdown to Extinction. And then the rest of your day, every queue, everything is outside.
Yeah, and the Tarzan Rock / Jungle Book Theater is outside. Oh, here we go. We have video. Kids, people used to film this stuff on tape. This had to be transferred from a tape.
Why would anybody have bothered to take the time
to film this so we can enjoy it now?
Transfer it.
Oh. Here we go. You're gonna see the fire burst out of a hole next to the cave. There it goes. Oh boy. Why not? I mean, it's a piece of history. It might be terrible, but look at that. They didn't even finish the bridge. There's scaffolding on the bridge. Anyway. Yeah. So. Yeah, of course, the effect was turned off after the closure of the boats because why would you have it on? But you could still see it from Camp Mini Mickey, which now you can still see it from. You get a better view of it walking from actually up on Nomad Lounge on the patio. You can see it from the other side where the hole actually was. And the other show scene, as you pass the shore of Africa, hot spring geysers would go off. Look at this. We got this video ready too.
It's kind of difficult to navigate.
Great. It's like Big Thunder Mountain, but you're in the water.
There we go.
Probably the most impressive effect after Aladar was released. There you go. Very exciting. And that's it. We have covered everything there was to see. Look at the camera. Look at this. Oh, life was so different back then.
I think that's my dad.
Amazing. No, kids, that's not like the trap from Ghostbusters. That's a video camera. Now we use this. Now videos are shot in high definition on a flat thing.
Something you don't put on your shoulder.
I mean, you could. I don't know why, but you could. We should come up with one of those big rubber phone cases, but it's of like the shoulder camera, and you put your phone in it. Great! It's $1 million idea. Someone's going to come out with it now. So that was what happened, and needless to say, people were disappointed because you didn't really see anything. I remember I really liked the dinosaur. I like dinosaurs. I thought that was cool. I still felt like the ride was stupid. And then Asia wasn't done, so you passed like nothing. There was just this plot of dirt. You can also see those animals that would pop out of the water and spray water. One of them's there on the left. There's not a whole lot of documentation of those. I know we have some longer videos that they're in, but they're not really worth looking at because they're really not much of anything. It's kind of like when you put one of those sprinkler things on the end of your hose for the kids during the summer. It's really not all that different from that. Yeah. So because of this, after the summer had concluded, the attraction tested horribly. People were waiting hours in line. They decided to just close it. And they reopened. They closed it in September, reopened in November of '98 with Aladar removed as the Discovery River Taxi with a new name, using taxi to emphasize to people that, hey, this is not a ride. It's just a transportation system. The thing I don't understand about that is this route didn't really get you very far in the park. So you're talking about the dock. The two docks are one of them is basically where the Riverside Depot is now. So you'd go around that corner, sort of right before the bridge to Dino Land. Well, this is the Asia one. This is Upcountry Landing. I think we have a picture of the other dock in there, Michael. So Discovery Island on the way to Dino Land, there's a station there. And then Upcountry Landing is obviously right across from Flights of Wonder. That is sort of within the inner circle of the park. Actually, I have a current map, the 20th map. There's the other dock. So obviously, if you look at a map of the park, I don't know if Michael wants to pull up a map, or I'll just show this one. Either way, this will work. But yeah, there's the other dock. Maybe we'll pull up the map on there. It might be better to show people.
Yeah, that would be easier.
We'll talk about McDonald's shortly. It just wasn't a great distance, which I think was the problem with like other similar rides. Plaza Swan Boats didn't really serve a purpose either, and that's why the Magic Kingdom got rid of that. It was around for 10 years, I think. Just didn't serve much of a purpose. So if we look here, where letter D is, there's a boat there. That's the dock there, and you used to be able to access it right there even. You didn't have to go all the way around. Or maybe you did. Maybe the entrance was there and the exit was the other side. And then R is, so you can see here, like literally you could walk that even at a slower speed in probably less than 5 minutes. You could be at that other dock. So what the transportation purpose was is unclear. Like basically they had ordered these boats. They didn't know what to do. They lost the show scenes. And at this point, they were not looking to spend money on this boat ride. They felt it was a loss already. So they tried to just use it as a transportation system. But again, it's just not a real far distance. Like it wasn't doing anything for anyone. Actually, and the other problem is they're going clockwise, and that's a really long trip around that left side. So if you were trying to get there fast, this was not accomplishing that either. So you were saving yourself a 5-minute walk, and you were taking much longer to get there by going the other way on this big, slow, stupid boat. So they were pretty useless. But nonetheless, they continued to survive through the holiday season, and they closed in January of 99 and reopened in March of 1999 as the Radio Disney River Cruise. In an attempt to make the attraction more appealing, they added commentary from Radio Disney DJs named Just Plain Mark and Zippy. And the guests were told that the songs being played on the boat were broadcast from the Tree of Life, the top of the Tree of Life. So in story, these two DJs are on top of the Tree of Life broadcasting Radio Disney hits onto your boat. That is the attraction story.
I don't think this was to make it more entertaining. I think this was just to cross-promote Radio Disney.
Well, they were trying to add some appeal. They thought, like, kids would be like, oh, Radio Disney, all right.
They thought wrong.
They were very wrong, as they were with every version of this ride that they perpetrated.
Was that supposed to be a party boat or something? Walking out
to a kid's party boat.
A party boat. Wow. All right. So the ride, needless to say, this did not work. So the ride just closed forever on August 21st, 1999, just because nothing was working. That being said, the park quickly made use of the 2 docks, both of which can still be experienced by guests now. The Safari Village dock has been used for character greetings for many, many years. It started with the Winnie the Pooh characters up until recently, and then it's been home to Daisy and Donald at different points, and also Pocahontas. And then in Asia, the dock, the upcountry landing was used as seating for the 2 little food stands that are in that area for a long time. And then King Louis and Baloo took over, and now, as of last week, King Louis and Baloo are gone from there. And now it sounds like Russell and Doug are going to move there fairly soon. That's the rumor. So that's what happened to the docks. The boats found new life. They're used on rare occasions in the early hours of park operations. They were used at Animal Kingdom sometimes in the early hours of park operations for a strange character cavalcade featuring Mickey Mouse and friends that would circle Discovery Island. Michael, we have that picture with the Everest construction, because that is well after the ride had been closed. We were already teasing you with another use they have later on. But years later, the boats were still used, just like Mickey and some other characters would go out on the boat and just drive around and wave to people from the boat, which they weren't great vantage points, so you really had to kind of look hard half the time to find them.
Yeah, because you got Donald in this one.
No, that's it in use. That's a lady. It's a lady in a hat. There's one with Everest under construction. There's blue construction walls. You'll find it. It's there.
I feel compelled to do the, hey, look at the lady in the Goofy mask, or from Muppets.
I'm not sure. I don't think.
Well, it was in one of the things I sent you, so you have it.
Is this it?
No.
No.
It's a far away shot. No, not that one. Keep going. I'm going to circle through all of these. Oh. It's a McDonald's box. There we go. So obviously, Everest is just about complete. So this is 2005, and there is a boat out on the water. And obviously, the ride closed in 1999. So this is a rare shot of the characters out just waving to guests years later. And then the other photo that Michael showed us already. Several of the boats were moved to the Seven Seas Lagoon and Bay Lake, where they were used for fireworks cruises and for transportation when traffic levels are a little higher and they need them. They would go ahead. There you go. They repainted them. They named them the Magic Kingdom 1 and 2 because the ferry boats were renamed in the 90s. To different names. They lost the Magic Kingdom 1 and 2 names, and because those names were available, they moved 2 of these over there and gave them the Magic Kingdom 1 and 2 names. The other boats, we don't really know what happened. There were 7. 2 of them ended up here. I think 1 or 2 are probably still at Animal Kingdom, and the rest destroyed, sold. We don't really know. So there you go. And now that they are, we already talked about that. I don't have a whole lot left. Yeah, this is the story of this attraction. There's not a whole lot to it, but the other reason it's such an important part was the McDonald's stuff, which we'll show the McDonald's stuff now. When McDonald's did this promotion for the opening of the park, one of the things most heavily advertised was the Dragon and the Discovery Riverboats. It was on a ton of stuff. So we're going to look at some of that stuff now. Here is the Happy Meal box. It says, journey by boat down Discovery River. Watch out for the fire-breathing dragon in the cave. Look at this, kid. You could have a more impressive show scene. You could pop the dragon out and put it in your book. Is that great? But yeah, so there it is, advertised nationally at every McDonald's location. There was also a toy of that dragon. Michael, we have a picture of the toy. There we go. There's the toy, which many of you probably have. You press in that little button on the stomach and the wings would flap. That was the closest you ever got to this thing in real life. My other favorite thing was I didn't realize Japan McDonald's had different toys. These are going to be those 4 cards, Michael. I don't know if we have a picture of the actual toys, too. I sent that. But we may just have the cards. So they did a series of toys which actually has a sculpted toy riverboat And then it included this big card of the dragon, but the dragon looks kind of doofy.
Dragon looks like Figment.
Yeah, it's a happy dragon, and there he is. And this came with the Japan. There's 4 toys. These were part of the Japan McDonald's Animal Kingdom promotion, and with him came Donald in a little plastic Discovery Riverboat. So
Here we go.
You have the toys now. We found it. There you go. Fun fact, after finding these, I searched for these on eBay and found them and bought them because I did not have these, nor did I know they existed. They're pretty neat. I think they're cooler than what we had. I didn't care for just the animals. You see Goofy's there in the boneyard with the dinosaur. They're pretty neat. But there's Donald in a Discovery Riverboat. One of the 4 toys they decided on was the Riverboat. So that tells you why people may have thought the Riverboat was going to be something of value, because the whole world was shown this boat ride and, got on it under false pretenses, basically. So yeah, that's the story of Discovery Riverboats.
So speaking of false pretenses, I just want to take this chance to apologize to anyone who may have been misled by my family. I went with my dad and his best friend, and in the summer of '98, after waiting a really long time and getting nearly heat stroke, afterward, my dad's friend decided that he could mislead everyone in the park to believe that this was the best ride and draw people away from attractions so that the lines would be smaller. So if anybody was led away from Kilimanjaro Safaris by a man shouting how great the Discovery Riverboats were, I apologize for my family trip 20 years ago.
I think we could say in this context, that's water under the bridge.
Wow.
Oof.
Wow.
You're welcome.
And Disney did their own job of misleading people, so I don't feel too bad, but
yeah,
we were tricked as well.
So there's some other things to this story that revealed in more recent years. So the dragon scene, in order to add more drama to the dragon scene, Disney initially wanted to have melted suits of armor, which belonged to ill-fated knights lining the shores of the Discovery River, and it would appear that these knights were foiled, or fried, if you will, in their attempts to slay the beast, and for reasons that remain unclear, Disney pulled the knights from the scene before park opened. So this sounds very similar to what happened at Kilimanjaro Safaris. You may remember in the original story in Kilimanjaro Safaris, there's Big Red and Little Red, a mother elephant and a baby elephant. And in the original version, during previews, you would see the dead carcass of Big Red. You would see this big elephant just dead on the floor to make the example to people of how real poaching was. They wanted you to have this real, this example that felt real to take home with you. And needless to say, kids that were on the ride were crying and really unhappy that there was a big dead elephant. So that got removed. So obviously in later years, you would hear that the poachers were after Big Red and Little Red, and eventually you'd stop the poachers, and Little Red would be all cute, shaking his butt in the truck at the end. And you'd be told that Big Red was fine because they didn't want to go and have to build a happy elephant animatronic after all that. So this may have been a similar thing where it didn't test well, where they thought kids were maybe scared because there was all these melted suits of armor and people had died for whatever reason. That didn't stick around. And we actually have a little cast member story we found online that was posted back in July of 2014 from a cast member who opened Animal Kingdom. Quote, "I opened Animal Kingdom in Dinoland at Countdown to Extinction. Discovery Riverboats was meant to be an attraction giving a glimpse inside each land at the park. The issue was the boats were too cumbersome for their size, and with the waterway being scaled back, they were hard to manage and very slow. At opening, the ride went, you boarded at the downriver landing, or up, I think this is the upcountry landing. They probably just didn't remember the name. And you would pass under the main bridge and proceed into Beastly Kingdom. Now this would be the Safari Village dock. Then you'd pass under the main bridge and proceed into Beastly Kingdom. On the left of the small lagoon, there was a statue of a unicorn on a hill as you first entered the Beastly Kingdom area. Then there were ruins carved into the rocks under the bridge of Camp Minnie Mickey, and a small stone house holding up one side. Next, you passed rocks that were arranged to look like a dragon. This, of course, exists. It's there. It's still there on the bridge to Pandora. You'll see it with a waterfall out of its mouth. And next was the Dragon Cave, which, again, still physically there. It says here they did add lances, shields, and suits of crushed or burnt armor just after opening, but those were not in place for the previews. As you went into, so apparently it was not there for the previews. It was added after opening, but guests didn't like it, so they removed it. That's apparently the story. And as you went into Africa, there were geysers that would erupt. We talked about that. As you passed under the Africa Bridge, there were storks on the river's edge on a sandbar by the Tree of Life. The sandbar many times caused the boats to run aground because of how unwieldy the boats were. Leaving Africa, you came to the upcountry dock where you could stay on or disembark. Eventually, they changed that, I guess. Staying on, you passed under the Asia Bridge and through what was to become the Mount Everest area. And there were live cattle on the riverside in the large lake area. On the river's edge by Safari Village were large, colorful fountains of animals made from cut metal that would spray water. As you passed under the Dinoland Bridge, there were lawn chairs and other items from college kids that worked on the dig site. And after you went under the bridge, there was an iguanodon drinking and splashing water, which we showed you already. He was added after the park opening because he wasn't ready on opening day. The problem with the ride was the speed of the boats, the heat, and the lack of excitement. It took 30 minutes from one dock to the next, and the boats were totally open with no fans. I don't know if that 30 minutes is correct. Maybe a little embellishment. Add to that, the guests saw was a lot of plants and few static items and some fire. Eisner came on a ride through just after opening and told them to fix it. So they added animal handlers onto the boats with smaller animals, reptiles, and insects. He and the guest didn't like that either. They tried renaming it to show that they were just transportation, and that didn't appease the guest complaint either. Eisner wrote again and said to rework it. In stepped the Radio Disney with a live broadcast from atop the Tree of Life. The voices, it says here, voices of Flick and other characters from It's Tough to Be a Bug. Maybe those were there also. I don't remember that. Eisner's final ride ended with him stating, "This barely classifies as transportation. Shut it down." And so died the Discovery Riverboats. Pictures of the suits of armor do not exist. One really cool picture we found, and I see Michael's already ready to show it. A couple of years ago, someone said they bought this from Disney. And there it is. That is the unicorn statue that was supposed to be displayed. The dogs were not part of it. That is the unicorn statue that was supposed to be displayed on Discovery Riverboats. Apparently, when they finally cleared out the land for Pandora, this was in one of the backstage buildings there, one of the entertainment facilities for Pocahontas and Lion King. This was still sitting there because it had been installed and removed very quickly, or never installed. We don't really know, but they ended up with this static figure and not the animatronic they originally wanted to do. And it just sat backstage, and eventually Disney liquidated it, and it ended up at somebody's house in Orlando. And that's the most anybody's ever seen of that thing. Yeah. Of course, Beastly Kingdom, that ride did have the most of Beastly Kingdom that ever did exist, obviously with the Dragon Cave and maybe that unicorn at some point. And Michael, I know you have that pin with the piece of concept art for the roller coaster, which eventually, it's no secret that basically the Imagineering teams that did design work on Disney Sea and Animal Kingdom ended up going to Universal after they were all fired after the design phase and working on Islands of Adventure. And so a lot of that's just the pin which they sold for Discovery Riverboats. Yes, that existed. So the design team took a lot of what they had developed for Disney Sea and Animal Kingdom and brought it over to Islands of Adventure. So parallels between those two parks are not hard to find. And although they are now, thanks to Harry Potter, which replaced a lot a lot of this stuff that got built at Islands of Adventure. Of course, they built Dueling Dragons, which is pretty much a very toned down, cheaper version of what Disney wanted to do for Beastly Kingdom, this dragon coaster. So if you look closely there's a train, roller coaster train, different type of roller coaster than what Dueling Dragons ended up being, actually passing a dragon animatronic, and that would have been one of the encounters on that roller coaster ride, the e-ticket of Beastly Kingdom. Among the other attractions, which of course had a unicorn maze, and there was the Fantasia boat ride, and a lot of really cool things. And of course, the unicorn stuff got recycled into the Flying Unicorn roller coaster, the kiddie coaster at Islands of Adventure, which is now Flight of the Hippogriff. So Beastly Kingdom found some life at Islands of Adventure, albeit budget cut, as most things were from either resort at that time. And and of course, Discovery Riverboats, nothing ever happened on this river again. I mean, the next thing that happened on this river was Rivers of Light, which, when Rivers of Light was in development, people always talk about the rumors of it being a parade, essentially. Originally, they were going to do a nighttime parade on the water, and the boats were going to be part of it, supposedly. And of course, that's not what Rivers of Light ended up being. Whether or not that would have been better, who knows? But other than that, the rivers have remained empty, and now you get to walk a little bit of that ride path when you go between Pandora and Africa. It's pretty cool, but other than that, you don't really see a lot of this waterway. And no one has anything to say because this ride was that lackluster.
I'm having a real hard time even remember being on this ride. I asked my family, and nobody remembers riding this ride, so it certainly didn't make any impressions on us.
Yeah. I only rode it twice. I rode it once in the original version and once for Radio Disney, and that was the extent of my experience with it. I don't know what else to say about it. I think at this point we then obviously look to the future. I don't think anything's going to happen, but do we think is there any way they would ever bring any sort of boat transportation ride back to this park, or is it's just a thing that theme parks don't do anymore?
It doesn't make sense for this park because it doesn't really get you. It doesn't cut. There's no shortcut to be had.
Yeah.
So there's no point.
Yeah. Well, not only that, now that they have Rivers of Light, that to me would, even if it doesn't go anywhere near there, what's the...
Yeah, I mean, it just would have to stop in the evening, which is what they do at Disney Sea. If there's they also could run shuttle mode. I mean, they could run something from Asia to Africa back the other way. But I
don't see, like Alice, I really don't see the point. There's not really an advantage to it unless they went back and added show scenes or something to make it interesting to ride the boat, which I don't see them doing because it's not necessary. I don't see why they would bother.
I don't remember much from geometry, but I remember that the circumference is the longest way around the circle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a short walk across the island. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they're going to use the void and install it on the boat, and have your adventure on the water while you're in
VR experience. Yeah. That's how we saved Discovery Riverboats. Yeah. I'm sure these weren't cheap either. I mean, these boats had to be a little bit expensive. But Eisner didn't like it, and he kept saying he didn't like it, and eventually they just got rid of it. I mean, by then they had stuff in development. I mean, they just opened Tarzan Rocks, and they were starting to build Dino-Rama, and I guess at that point they were like, all right, we'll survive until then. And they did. I mean, it didn't really affect the park. It was like Superstar Limo, where closing it probably improved the park. And I've told this story a million times. I did not like this park when it opened. The times we went in 1998, I really strongly disliked it. I didn't think there was much of value. I don't know. I didn't like the Jungle Book show. The only things I like Countdown to Extinction. I liked It's Tough to Be a Bug, and that was pretty much it. And maybe I was spoiled. And I had this conversation with someone over the weekend, where I think I was spoiled living 2 blocks away from the Bronx Zoo my whole life. Animal encounters of that nature were not a thing I didn't get to see twice a week. So obviously these are top-notch animal exhibits, including the stuff that opened at the park, like Pangani and Kilimanjaro. And maybe I appreciate those now more than I did then. But at least at that time, I didn't really understand what I was supposed to like about this park. And the boat didn't help because the boat was bad. The boat ride was just so terrible that it just was another thing dragging the park down. And then I really didn't see a redeeming thing about the park until Tarzan Rocks opened. Then slowly over the years, they finally added things that I enjoyed.
I had a similar reaction, but I had an idea though, thinking toward the future and like in line with what Disney has been doing. I could see a future if they did something with show scenes and it was like a slow moving ride, and then they also fed people on a dessert cruise.
Wow.
That I could see them doing and making something of this.
Drive you into the middle of Rivers of Light. You get to watch it from like the middle of the show.
Exactly.
You won't get hit by a barge or anything. Those always work. Those always go where they're supposed to go, right?
Adding food to anything always seems like a good idea, usually.
Yeah.
They like a good upcharge now.
Right, yeah, and then because money, then you can upcharge. Excellent.
Well, they are being used for fireworks cruises, so they did figure that out at least for 2 of the boats. So it's not as if they didn't figure out a way to get some money out of these things, right? So, yeah. That's all I've got, folks. That's everything. So
everything?
That's the whole script. I don't have anything else. I know we're not used to having short Back to the Future segments.
No.
That's the whole story of this ride.
This is much more than I ever thought could be said.
Well, we're comprehensive. I think we were pretty comprehensive about this attraction, but that's how lackluster it is. But I think it's one of those things that no one ever talks about, and it's worth at least discussing. I think especially to the 20th anniversary, it's an attraction. It's an opening day attraction that no longer exists. It's the only opening day. Well, I guess you can count Camp Mini Mickey, but really the only opening day attraction that doesn't exist anymore.
And it was also the only attraction that had any interaction with all of the parts of the park.
Yeah, and it was supposed to have show scenes based on each land of the park. It didn't.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. I just don't know how it got this far in development where they were like, yeah, we're still doing the boats, even though nothing got approved. Like they built that one figure, they built the rock with the fire, and someone was like, yeah, this is a ride. I don't know how that got that far. At that point, especially as budget conscious as they were, I don't understand why this money just didn't get sent somewhere else.
Probably the argument was that it's one of those boat rides, kind of like it's a small world around a bigger world.
But
they didn't have show scenes or anything.
It's a small world has show scenes.
I think it was a desperation to absorb crowds.
I was going to
like,
say the only logic may have been capacity, but
the only thing I can think about is they were ordered already. Like the boats had to have already been ordered. Like it might have been too late. It had to be too late in some way.
But then on the flip side of that, why they didn't go back and say, all right, well, we should probably improve the show scenes and make it more interesting.
Well, because they didn't give them the money. I guarantee you they didn't give them the money.
Yeah.
Michael Eisner probably said, fix it, but I'm only giving you this. And it was probably a very small amount of money.
Yeah.
It was $30 to buy the cages for the scorpions. And
to run down to Petco.
And then they had that unicorn statue, and you wonder if that was ever installed or not, but it was there. How much could it have cost at that point to just plop that thing down on the river? Like, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It's a shame because you listen to the original description and the show scenes that they wanted to do. And it sounds like it actually would have been interesting and kind of fun and cool to see. And then
the cute little transportation ride. Seems like, an animatronic dragon would have certainly saved it. I mean, that even if they had just built that one additional item, I think it might have saved it.
Well, yeah, because like I said before, they did just enough to draw attention to the fact that it sucked.
Yeah.
and that there was something missing and that they didn't do a good job with it.
There's that sign that's been covered 8 times now for upcountry landing. But yeah, that's the story. Are we done? Is everybody good? We're good?
Yeah.
I got nothing.
All right. Well, then you can take it away, McFly.
Whoosh.
I don't know if it was a question. But all right.